The Hall of the Conquerors was filled with noise, alien voices echoing against high metal walls. Glowing banners of victory hung from the ceiling, each one marked with symbols of battles won and enemies crushed. In the center of the hall, raised on a black stone platform, stood a cage made of shining silver bars. Inside the cage was not gold, not jewels, but a living being. She was a young alien girl, her skin pale blue like frozen light, her eyes large and glowing faintly in the shadows. Her thin arms were chained, her ankles bound with heavy iron. She had been taken from her people long ago, and now she was displayed as a trophy. The warlord who captured her kept her here not for kindness, but to show power. She was the reminder that even the proudest could be broken. The guests laughed as they passed by. Some threw scraps of food at her, others pointed and mocked. They called her the prize and the pet and the jewel in chains. She had no name here, only a role. She was not a person, only a possession. Days and nights blended together. Filled with pain and silence, her heart had grown heavy. Her voice almost forgotten, still deep inside, a small flame of hope refused to die. She dreamed sometimes of escape, of freedom, of someone who would see her as more than a trophy. But dreams were dangerous in this place. Dreams brought pain when reality crushed them again. So she sat in silence, her glowing eyes fixed on the floor. On this night, the hall was more crowded than usual. The warlord celebrated another victory. New banners hung, new slaves brought in chains. The conqueror laughed from his throne, proud and cruel, at the center of the room. The girl's cage shone under the firelight. She felt the stares of the crowd, and her heart sank deeper. Then something unusual happened. A figure entered the hall who did not belong. He was not tall like the other guests, not covered in armor or bright alien robes. He was a human. His clothes were simple, travel-worn. His eyes sharp and restless, he walked with quiet steps. But his presence drew whispers. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Many saw them as weak, unimportant, fragile compared to other species. Yet the human did not seem afraid. He looked around the hall with steady eyes. His gaze soon rested on the cage in the center. The girl lifted her head, her glowing eyes meeting his for the first time. In that instant, something stirred inside her. He did not look at her the way others did. There was no mockery, no cruel delight. His eyes were filled with something else, pity, anger, and something she had almost forgotten, respect. For a brief moment she felt seen, truly seen. The warlord noticed the human and laughed. "A stranger comes to admire my prize," he roared. "Look well, little man, for she is proof of my power. None can take her from me." The hall echoed with laughter, cruel and loud, but the human did not laugh. He stepped closer to the cage, ignoring the voices around him. He studied the chains, the bruises on her arms, the hollow look in her eyes. His fists tightened at his sides slowly. He whispered words she barely heard. "You don't belong here." Her heart skipped. For so long she had been nothing but a possession. Yet here was someone speaking to her, not at her. Someone who saw her suffering and did not turn away. She wanted to speak, but her voice trembled and broke. The crowd shouted, mocking the human. "What will you do, fragile one? Challenge the warlord? Break the unbreakable cage?" Their laughter grew, filling the air with scorn. The girl lowered her head again, afraid. Hope was dangerous, yet part of her wanted to believe. The human did not move away. He stood there, surrounded by enemies, his eyes locked on her chains. The warlord leaned forward, grinning. "Do you think you can save her? You are weak, and she is mine forever." The hall grew tense, whispers spreading like fire. The human's silence was heavier than words. Slowly he raised his head and spoke. His voice was calm but firm. "No one belongs in chains." The words cut through the noise like a blade. The girl's heart pounded. The crowd fell into uneasy murmurs. Some laughed again, others frowned. The warlord's eyes narrowed with sudden anger. The girl pressed her hands against the cold bars, her trembling fingers reaching out though she knew no one ever reached back. Her eyes locked on the human, a silent question burning inside. Would he really try? Would he truly dare? The warlord rose from his throne, his massive form towering over the hall. His voice thundered, "Then show us, human. Show us your strength if you dare defy me." The chains rattled as the girl flinched. The crowd erupted, voices rising in chaos. And in that storm of laughter and threat, the human took another step toward the cage. His eyes steady, his will unbroken for the first time in years. The girl felt her heart whisper the forbidden word again. Hope. The crowd buzzed with excitement. whispers running like fire across the grand hall. They had seen many challenges before, many fools who dared to speak against the warlord. Yet none of them had been human to them. Humans were fragile wanderers of the stars, beings who survived by trade or cunning, not by strength or bravery. The warlord stood tall on his throne, his tusks gleaming under the burning lights. His armor clanged as he leaned forward. "Speak, human. What is it you wish? Do you think you can take my trophy? Do you believe you have the right?" His voice shook the hall like thunder. The human did not step back. His boots were worn, his cloak plain, but his eyes were steady. He looked not at the warlord, but at the girl in chains. Her glowing eyes trembled, fear and disbelief swirling inside her. For so long she had seen strangers come and go, yet no one had dared to care. He spoke at last, his voice calm but sharp. "She is not your trophy. She is not your prize. She is a person. She deserves freedom, not chains." The hall exploded with laughter. Aliens of different shapes and colors slapped tables, their voices booming. "A human speaks of freedom," they mocked. "How fragile words sound in this hall." Some spat on the ground. Others sneered. None believed his words mattered. The warlord roared with laughter as well. "Foolish creature, do you think freedom has value here? Power decides worth, and I have power. She is mine because I took her. What can you, a lone human, do against me?" The human's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists, his voice grew louder. "You call this power chaining the weak? Mocking the helpless, but true power is not in chains. True power is in breaking them." The girl gasped softly. Her heart beat fast. She had heard whispers of human bravery, stories carried from distant worlds, but she had never seen it with her own eyes. She wanted to believe him, but fear pressed heavy in her chest. If he failed, the punishment would be cruel, and it might fall on her too. The warlord stood from his throne, his massive steps shaking the stone floor. "You speak like a dreamer. Human dreams are crushed here. Do you challenge me then? Do you think your kind, weak and small, can stand against me?" His tusks gleamed as he smiled. Cruel and sure of victory, the human lifted his head. His voice was steady, his gaze unbroken. "I challenge your claim. She does not belong to you if you believe in power." "Then face me and prove it," gasps filled the hall. Never before had a human spoken such words in this place. The air thickened with tension. Even the alien guards shifted uneasily. The warlord laughed again, but there was fire in his eyes now. A flame of anger that burned hotter than pride. The girl pressed her hands to the bars. Trembling, "Don't," she whispered, her voice so faint it almost vanished. "You cannot win. He will kill you. You cannot fight him." But the human looked at her with calm eyes. His lips curved in the faintest smile. "Some things are worth dying for," he said softly. She froze, her chest aching with strange new feelings. No one had ever spoken such words for her sake. The warlord raised his hand and the guards moved. Clearing the space between them, the crowd pushed back, eager for blood, eager for spectacle. The hall became an arena, torches burning brighter, shadows twisting across the walls. The human removed his cloak, letting it fall. His body was scarred, proof of battles fought and survived. He carried no heavy weapon, only a simple blade at his side. Yet the way he held himself made it clear. He was no stranger to struggle. The warlord laughed at the sight. "A small blade against me? You insult me, but I will enjoy crushing you, and when I am done your bones will be displayed beside her chains." The human drew his blade, its edge catching the firelight. His grip was firm, his stance low. He said nothing more, but his silence was louder than any taunt. It was the silence of a man who had made a choice. The girl's heart thundered. Her glowing eyes followed his every move. Torn between terror and awe for the first time, someone was not mocking her, not ignoring her. He was fighting for her, risking his life for her. She pressed her forehead to the cold bars, whispering words no one else could hear. "Please don't die." The warlord raised his massive weapon, a blade as long as the human's body. The ground shook as he slammed it down to the floor in challenge. Sparks flew, the hall roared with excitement. The duel had begun. The human did not flinch. His eyes were locked on the warlord. His chest rose and fell slowly, steady as stone, around him. The laughter of the crowd grew. They did not believe he could last a single strike, but the girl saw something different. In his eyes there was no fear, only determination. In his stance there was no weakness, only resolve. For the first time in years, she felt something awaken inside her. a fragile flame that spread warmth through her chains. Hope. The warlord roared and charged, the hall shaking with each step. The human stepped forward to meet him, and in that clash of strength and will, the story of defiance truly began. The hall trembled as the warlord's blade came crashing down. Sparks flew as stone cracked under the weight of his strike. The crowd roared, believing the fight was already over. But when the dust cleared, the human still stood. His smaller blade had caught the warlord's strike. Steel against steel, gasps filled the room. The human's arms shook under the force. But his feet did not move, his eyes locked on the warlord's. Steady and unyielding, the warlord snarled, his tusks flashing as he pushed harder. "You cannot stop me, human," he growled. "You are nothing." The human gritted his teeth, sweat forming on his brow. His voice came out firm. "I am not nothing, and she is not yours." With a twist of his blade, he slid the warlord's weapon aside. The warlord stumbled back a step, surprise flashing in his cruel eyes. The crowd fell into silence, then erupted into shouts. Some cheered for the warlord, others mocked the human. But a few began to murmur with unease. It was clear. This was no ordinary fight. The girl inside the cage clung to the bars, her breath shallow. Her glowing eyes widened as she watched, for the first time in years, someone stood against her master and lived past the first blow. Her heart pounded, fear and hope tangled together. The warlord roared, swinging his massive blade again. The human moved quickly, rolling to the side. His smaller size became his strength, while the warlord relied on power. The human relied on speed, strike after strike. He avoided death by inches. His blade darted like lightning, scratching across the warlord's armor, leaving marks that burned the warlord's pride. The hall thundered with noise. The crowd screamed for blood. Some demanded the human's death, others leaned forward. Caught by the sight of his defiance, the warlord grew furious, each attack stronger than the last. But each one missed its mark. At last, the human struck true. His blade cut across the warlord's arm, crimson spilling. The warlord roared in pain and rage. His weapon slammed into the floor again, shattering stone. The human leapt back, his chest rising and falling fast, but his eyes still blazing. The girl pressed her hand against the bars, whispering, "Please, please." She did not even know what she begged for. His victory, his survival, or simply that he would not give up. Her chains rattled as she trembled. The warlord glared, "You dare wound me? You dare shame me before my hall?" His voice shook the walls, his fury grew, his strikes wilder. But in his rage he became careless. The human seized the moment, slipping past the warlord's swing. His blade pierced deep into the warlord's side. The warlord stumbled, his roar turning into a guttural cry. The crowd gasped in shock. No one had ever seen the mighty warlord wounded by a single fighter. Let alone a human, he dropped to one knee. His weapon heavy in his hands, the hall fell silent, only the crackle of torches filling the air. The human stood tall, his blade ready, his voice rang out. Not loud, but strong enough to echo. "This ends now." The warlord spat blood, glaring with hatred. "You may wound me, human, but you will never take what is mine." His hand shot out, reaching for the control device at his belt. The device that bound the chains. The girl gasped, terror filling her eyes. She knew what would come: pain, punishment, a cruel reminder of her helplessness. But before the warlord could press it, the human lunged. His blade struck the device, shattering it into sparks. The chains on the girl's wrists and ankles glowed for a moment, then fell with a heavy clang. Her eyes widened as the weight left her limbs. For the first time in years, she felt air touch her skin without cold iron biting into it. She stumbled forward, almost unable to believe it was real. The crowd erupted in chaos. Some screamed in outrage, others in disbelief. Guards rushed forward. "Weapons raised!" The warlord roared, trying to rise, his fury unbroken. The human turned to the girl, his voice urgent. "Run!" Now, she stared at him, trembling. I'm free?" She whispered, her voice cracked with disbelief. "Yes," he said firmly. "You're free, but we must go." She stepped out of the cage, her legs weak. Her heart raced faster than ever before. She looked back at the human, at the scarred figure who had done the impossible. In her eyes, he was no longer just a stranger. He was the one who had shattered her prison. The guards closed in. The human grabbed her hand. Pulling her forward, together they dashed across the hall. The warlord roared commands, but his voice was drowned by the chaos. The girl's chains lay broken on the floor, gleaming under the firelight, a symbol that the impossible had happened. She was no longer a trophy, she was free. But freedom came with danger, and as they fled into the shadows beyond the hall, the warlord's roar followed them, promising revenge. The hunt had only just begun. The night outside the warlord's hall was filled with fire and noise. Alarms rang, lights swept across the dark streets, and hunters poured into the alleys. The human and the girl ran through the shadows, their footsteps echoing against the cold stone. Behind them, the roar of the warlord still carried. Promising vengeance, the girl's breath came fast, her chest tight with both fear and disbelief. Her wrists were raw where the chains had fallen, yet she could not stop touching them. She kept whispering to herself, "Free, I am free," as if saying it too loudly might break the fragile truth. The human gripped her hand firmly, pulling her forward. He moved quickly but with purpose. He seemed to know where to step, which turns to take, as if he had studied the city before coming. His eyes scanned every corner, searching for threats. They slipped through narrow streets, the stench of oil and smoke filling the air. Above them, alien patrol ships moved across the sky, their searchlights stabbing the darkness. The girl flinched each time one passed, but the human tugged her into deeper shadows, whispering, "Stay low, stay quiet." The city was dangerous even without hunters. It was filled with thieves, mercenaries, and broken souls who would sell anyone for a handful of credits. As they passed through a crowded market street, cloaked figures turned their heads, eyes following the glow of the girl's alien features. She lowered her face, trembling. The human wrapped his cloak around her, hiding her pale blue skin. His voice was low but firm. "Don't look back, keep moving," she nodded, clutching the fabric around herself at last. They reached an abandoned warehouse near the city's edge. The human pushed the door open, the hinges groaning. Inside it was dark and filled with the smell of rust. He guided her to a corner, finally letting her catch her breath. The girl sank to the ground, her legs trembling. Her glowing eyes looked up at him, confusion and fear mixing in her voice. "Why did you do this? Why risk your life for me? You don't even know me." The human crouched beside her, his expression calm but tired. "Because no one deserves to live in chains," he said simply. "I saw you there treated like a thing, and I couldn't walk away." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken like that to her. For years she had been a symbol of shame and conquest. Now here was someone who saw her as a person. His words felt strange, almost unreal. Outside, the sound of footsteps grew closer. Voices echoed in alien tongues. The hunters were sweeping the district. Searching for the escapees, the human stood, checking the blade at his side. His voice was steady. "They won't stop. The warlord won't rest until you are caged again. We need to get off this world." The girl's eyes widened. "Off this world," she whispered. She had not thought beyond freedom from her cage. Now the idea of fleeing into the stars both terrified and excited her. The human nodded. "There are ships at the lower docks. Smugglers who don't ask questions. If we reach them, we can be gone before dawn." Her breath caught. She wanted to believe it. But fear clung to her heart. What if they catch us? What if we fail? He looked at her, his scarred face softened. "Then we fight again and again, until there is no fight left, but we don't give up, not now. Not after this." His words lit something inside her, fragile but bright. She nodded slowly. "I will follow." They moved again, slipping from shadow to shadow. Each street they crossed felt like a battlefield. Hunters passed close, their armored boots clanging against the ground. At one corner, a patrol almost spotted them, but the human pulled her into the broken shell of a building, holding her still until the danger passed. The girl pressed close, her heart racing. She could feel his steady heartbeat against her shoulder. It calmed her more than she expected. When the patrol left, he whispered, "Almost there." Finally, the docks came into view. Great steel platforms stretched toward the sea of stars. Ships of many shapes waited, engines humming. Some were sleek and official, others rough and patched. The human led her toward the far side, where smugglers lingered near their vessels. But before they reached the gate, a shadow blocked their path. A group of alien mercenaries stepped forward, blades drawn, their leader sneered. "The warlord wants his prize back. Hand her over, human. And maybe we'll let you crawl away." The girl froze, fear tightening her chest. Her freedom felt like it was slipping away again, but the human stepped in front of her, his blade flashing in the dim light. His voice was calm but cold. "She is not yours. And she never will be again." The mercenaries laughed. Moving to surround them, the girl's hands shook. Yet something inside her changed. Instead of only fear, she felt a spark of anger. She had been chained too long, mocked too long. Now she refused to go back. The human glanced at her, a silent promise in his eyes. "Stay behind me," he said, and then he moved. The clash began. Steel against steel, shadows against fire. In that dark corner of the docks, the fight for freedom raged again. And as the girl pressed her back to the wall, her glowing eyes wide, she realized something powerful. The human was not only her rescuer, he was her shield, her defiance, the proof that hope could live even in shadows. The dockyard rang with the clash of steel and the cries of hunters. The human moved like fire, fast and precise. His blade cut through the air with deadly purpose. The mercenaries had numbers, but he had determination. Each strike was measured, each step unshaken. The girl pressed against the wall, her glowing eyes wide as the fight unfolded. She had seen warriors before, brutal and merciless, but never had she seen someone fight like him. He did not fight for glory, not for power, but to protect. Each time a mercenary came close to her, he pushed them back with a storm of strikes. Still, the enemy pressed hard. Their weapons clanged. Sparks flew. The human was strong, but he was only one. Sweat streaked his face. Blood marked his arm where a blade had grazed him. Yet he did not falter. The leader of the mercenaries sneered. "You can't fight us all. Human, step aside, give us the girl. She belongs to the warlord. Her freedom is a lie." His voice echoed cruelly across the docks. The girl trembled, her chest tightened. She wanted to hide, to believe she was still too weak. But the human's voice cut through her fear. "She belongs to no one," he said fiercely. "Not to you, not to him. She belongs only to herself." Those words struck deep inside her, like a bell ringing in her soul. For so long she had been told she was property, a trophy, a reminder of conquest. Now someone told her she was her own. Tears filled her eyes, but with them came strength. The mercenaries attacked again. The human fought, blocking and striking, but their numbers pressed closer. His breath grew heavy, his steps slower. The girl's hands clenched for the first time. She refused to simply watch. Her eyes darted around the dock. She saw a loose metal rod lying near a broken crate. With trembling hands, she picked it up. Her knees shook. Her body screamed with weakness, but her heart beat with new fire. When one of the mercenaries rushed toward the human's back, the girl let out a cry and swung the rod with all her strength. It struck the alien's head, sending him stumbling. The human turned, eyes widening. "You," she panted, her glowing eyes fierce. "I will not go back in chains," she said, her voice cracked but strong. The human's chest swelled with pride for the first time. She was not only surviving, she was choosing. The mercenaries hesitated, their sneers faltering as the fragile trophy they had mocked now stood against them. But the leader roared, "Fools, she is nothing, end this." He charged forward, his blade raised high. The human met him with a clash of steel. Sparks lit the night. Their battle shook the ground. Step after step, strike after strike. The girl swung her rod again, striking another mercenary. Fear coursed through her, but courage burned hotter. Each time she moved, each time she fought, she felt the chains on her soul break a little more. The fight raged on. The human's blade cut through the air, his movements fierce despite exhaustion. At last, with a roar, he struck the leader down. The mercenary fell, his weapon clattering across the dock. The remaining fighters froze, their leader defeated, their will shaken. Some turned and fled into the shadows, others backed away slowly, their eyes no longer full of mockery but of fear. The human lowered his blade, his chest heaving. He turned to the girl, his voice gentle despite the battle. "You were brave," he said. "You chose to fight." She dropped the metal rod, her hands shaking. "I was afraid," she whispered. "But I could not watch you fall, I could not go back." Tears slid down her cheeks. Not of despair, but of release. He stepped closer, resting a scarred hand on her shoulder. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing even when you are afraid." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in years, she felt more than survival. She felt strength inside her, fragile but real. The sound of alarms echoed again. More hunters would come. The human glanced toward the ships, his voice urgent. "We must move, the path is open. But we must choose now. If we run, we may escape into the stars. If we stay, we fight until the end." Her heart pounded. The choice was heavy. It was not only his fight now, it was hers too. For the first time, she had a say in her own fate. She wiped her tears and lifted her chin. "We run together, we run to freedom." The human nodded, a faint smile crossing his tired face. "Then let's go, hand in hand." They ran across the dock toward the waiting ships. Their shadows stretched long under the burning lights. Behind them, the warlord's hunters still searched. Ahead of them lay the unknown stars. But no matter what waited, she knew one truth. She was no longer a trophy, no longer a possession. She had chosen, she was free. The lower docks were alive with noise. Engines roared, ships lifted into the sky, and voices shouted in dozens of languages. The human and the girl slipped among the shadows, their steps quick but cautious behind them. The echoes of the fight still clung to their ears, but ahead was the promise of escape. They found shelter near a stack of cargo crates. The human finally allowed them to rest for a moment. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, his face marked with sweat and blood. The girl sat beside him, her glowing eyes wide, still trying to believe this was real. For years she had lived behind silver bars, her voice silenced, her life stolen. Now she was out in the open air. Her wrists were bare, her ankles light. The simple act of stretching her arms made her shiver with strange joy. "I keep waiting to wake," she whispered. "I keep waiting to hear the chains again." The human turned to her, his scarred face softening. "This is no dream," he said gently. "You are free now, the chains are gone, no one can take that from you." Her throat tightened. Her voice broke as she asked, "Why do you care? You could have walked past me. You could have saved yourself. But you risked everything for me." He looked away for a moment, his eyes distant. "Because I know what it means to be powerless," he said. "I know what it means to be treated like nothing. And I swore long ago if I could stop it, I would. Even if it costs me," her heart ached. She had never heard such words spoken, especially not for her. For so long she had been told she had no value. No worth now, sitting here with this strange human. She began to believe otherwise. A sudden rumble shook the dock. A warship rose into the sky, its light sweeping across the city. The girl flinched, her hand gripping his sleeve. He placed his hand over hers, steady and warm. "Do not fear. We will not stop now." They moved again, weaving through the maze of steel walkways. The human kept close, guiding her with calm strength. She stayed beside him, her trust growing with each step. As they paused near another gate, she noticed a vendor watching them. The vendor's eyes narrowed at her glowing features. The girl froze, expecting betrayal, expecting him to shout. But before fear could consume her, the human pulled her hood over her head and whispered, "Look down, trust me." She obeyed, her heart racing, and they passed unnoticed. The girl realized something then: freedom was not easy. It was filled with danger, suspicion, and fear. Yet, with him beside her, it felt possible. She whispered softly, "I don't know how to live without chains. I don't even know who I am." The human looked at her, his eyes steady. "You will learn," he said. "You will eat when you wish, speak when you wish, laugh when you wish. You will discover yourself step by step. That is what freedom means." Her chest swelled with something new. It was not fear, not despair, it was hope. Fragile but real, she nodded slowly. "And you? What will you do?" He smiled faintly, though weariness tugged at his face. "I will walk beside you until you can walk without fear, until you no longer need me." The words pierced her heart. She wanted to speak, to say she would always need him. But her throat tightened. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you." Her voice trembled, but it carried more weight than any word she had spoken before. They reached the far side of the dock, where smaller ships rested in shadows. Smugglers moved here, faces hidden, hands quick. The human approached one, exchanging quiet words. After a tense moment, the smuggler agreed, pointing them toward a vessel that would leave at dawn. The girl's hands trembled as they walked toward the ship. She whispered, "Dawn, that means we stay here until morning?" "Yes," he said. "One more night, then we fly." They found a corner of the dock to hide. The girl curled up, exhaustion weighing on her. The human sat nearby, his blade resting across his knees, guarding her even in silence. She watched him as her eyes grew heavy, his scars, his calm, the steady strength he carried. It comforted her. Before sleep claimed her, she whispered, "When I was chained, I thought I was forgotten. Now, because of you, I feel alive." Her eyes closed, and for the first time in years, her sleep was not filled with nightmares. The human looked at her. His expression unreadable, he whispered back, though she could not hear, "You were always alive. I only reminded you." The dock outside hummed with danger. Shadows moved. Hunters searched. But in their small corner, there was peace for the first time. not as rescuer and rescued, but as companions bound by choice. They faced the stars together, and as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the girl stirred, her heart lighter. Her spirit no longer caged, their bond had grown, not of chains, but of freedom. And that bond was stronger than any prison the warlord could build. Dawn broke across the dockyards, pale light spilling over steel and smoke. The human stood watch, his blade in hand, while the girl stirred awake beside him. For a heartbeat, she forgot where she was. No chains, no cage, only the open air and the hum of ships preparing to leave. Then she remembered, and her chest filled with something new. Hope. But hope was fragile, and danger was never far. A heavy shadow fell across the dock. The warlord's ship descended, its engines rumbling like thunder. Hunters poured out, armored and armed. The warlord himself stepped onto the platform, his massive form towering, his tusks gleaming with rage. His wounds from the duel were bandaged, but his pride burned hotter than fire. The girl froze, terror flooding her veins. The warlord's voice thundered. "You thought you could steal from me, human? You thought you could break what is mine? She is my trophy, and I will tear you apart for this insult." The human stepped forward, placing himself between the warlord and the girl. His voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "She was never yours. She will never be anyone's trophy again." The warlord laughed, a sound that shook the air. "You are one man, human, one scarred wanderer. Do you think you can stand against me and my hunters?" The human raised his blade, his eyes blazing. "I do not stand alone," he said. His hand reached back, and the girl placed hers into his. Her grip was trembling yet strong. Together they faced the warlord. The hunters rushed forward, steel clanging against steel. The dock erupted into chaos. The human fought like a storm, each strike fueled not by pride but by purpose. His blade cut through armor, his movements sharp and fierce. The girl, though afraid, grabbed a fallen weapon, her glowing eyes fierce as she struck at those who came too close. For the first time, she was not a prisoner, not a victim. She was a fighter. Her heart raced, her body ached. But she refused to surrender. Every swing, every step was proof she was free. The warlord roared, pushing through his own hunters. His blade crashed down, sparks flying. The human met him strike for strike. The force of their clash shook the platform. The girl stumbled back, her breath caught, watching as the two giants of will collided. The warlord's strength was monstrous, each blow heavy enough to crush stone. But the human fought with something greater than strength. He fought with resolve, with the fire of someone who had nothing to lose but everything to protect. Step by step, he pushed the warlord back. The girl's heart pounded. She saw the truth in that moment. The human was not fighting only for her freedom. He was fighting to prove that no one had the right to chain another. His battle was not just against the warlord, but against the very idea of cruelty itself. The warlord roared with rage. Swinging his massive blade, the human dodged, then struck deep into the warlord's side. The giant staggered, his roar breaking into a guttural cry. His knees hit the platform, his weapon slipping from his hands. The hunters froze, fear flickering in their eyes. Their master was falling. The human stood tall. His blade pointed at the warlord. His voice rang out across the dock. "This ends here, no more chains. No more trophies." The girl stepped forward, her glowing eyes filled with tears. She looked at the warlord, once the source of her endless torment, now broken, defeated. For years she had dreamed of freedom, and now it was real. Her voice trembled but strong. "You cannot own me. I am not yours. I am not anyone's." The warlord glared. But his strength failed. His body slumped, silence filling the dock. One by one, the hunters lowered their weapons. Some fled into the shadows, others simply turned away. The warlord's reign was broken. The girl fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. The human stepped to her side, lifting her gently. She looked into his scarred face, her voice soft but full of truth. "You shattered my cage," he nodded, his hand resting on her shoulder. "No, you shattered it yourself. I only gave you the chance." They turned to the waiting ship. The engines humming, the human guided her aboard, and as the hatch closed behind them, she looked out one last time at the world where she had been chained, a world she would never call home again. As the ship lifted into the sky, stars stretched out before them. Endless and bright, the girl sat beside the human, her heart still trembling but no longer in fear. For the first time, the future was open, unknown, and hers to choose. She whispered, her voice steady. "I was a trophy, but now I am free. And I am not alone." The human smiled faintly, his gaze fixed on the stars. You will never be alone again, and together, scarred human and once chained girl, they left the world of cages behind, stepping into a new beginning, a story of freedom, courage, and the bond that could never be broken.